Good morning. My name is Becky Thorndike, and I am your president. Our roll call this morning is we do have 20 people. That means we met quorum, so thank you. We have some ground rules today. To make a comment, raise a question or concern, those in the sanctuary, please go to the microphone in the front of the room. This little black one in front of me. This will allow our Zoom members to hear what is being said. On Zoom, those of you on Zoom, it is an honor system regarding voting, which is for voting members only. If a discussion takes longer than 20 minutes to reach a vote, the topic will be tabled until future meeting. Announcements. The town hall meeting will proceed right after this meeting has adjourned. The topic, Know Your Enemy, will be coordinated by Dr. Penny Brewster. The 50th anniversary celebration week is October 2nd through the 9th. The sanctuary is closed next Sunday, June 26th, for the services, which will be on Zoom. We will be open again on July 3rd. We celebrate Juneteenth as a federal holiday on Monday, since the 19th is today, Sunday. Juneteenth commemorates the emancipation of enslaved people in the U.S. However, we still have a long way to go to embrace this history. Happy Father's Day.
Yay.
The Taste of Scotland celebration had a great day yesterday. And the team for today's meeting. Your sponsors is the board. Sign-in is Mary Teslo. Tellers are Bonnie Gramlich and Marcy Lacouture. Okay, we'll learn it. Parliamentarian is Clark Shoot. Zoom monitor is Jude. Recorder is Brenda. The greeters and microphone guides, well, Laura Lovelace, she's not here, and Mark, but also Deborah. Deborah will be the microphone guide. Tech manager is Warren. Secondary tech is Bruce. Sound tech is not here today. Decision makers, all of you, Zoom and in person. Call to order. Eric Walker Wickstrom wrote this following wise words. As we approach our agenda, let us remember that we are doing the work of the fellowship. When we do the work of this fellowship, we touch lives. When we touch lives, we change the world. May this chalice flame we now kindle remind us throughout our meeting of our ministry and our mission. As we light the chalice, we will have the Spirit of Life video. Hang on. We begin the business of the fellowship. The approval of the agenda needs to be amended in order to have the bylaw vote as our third agenda item in between the 2021 minutes and the election. The board ballot is dependent upon the results of the vote from the bylaw changes. We need a motion to approve the amended agenda. It's been moved by Mary to approve the amended agenda. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Bonnie. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, and hearing none, we will vote by the show of cards here in the building. So please hold your cards up until we say all clear. If you're on Zoom, you will receive a poll to vote. All those in favor, raise your card and vote. All clear? All those opposed? Raise your card, vote on the poll. Any abstain? There is no abstainers?
Those of us on Zoom are not submitting the ballot.
So those on Zoom should be receiving a poll.
I did not set one up for.
Okay. Would you guys raise your hand then, and Jude will count? Oh, okay. So Jude counted 4 on Zoom.
Yeses.
Yeses.
4 yeses on
No,
One person did vote no?
no, one person did not have a vote.
Oh.
I
Okay.
voted, this is
You
Olga,
passed?
I voted, I raised the hand on Zoom. If that's the
Yeah, I got
person
Olga,
you're talking about.
I got Olga, Travis, Penny, and Laura votes.
Becky wasn't there. She was in the ballot. If you would like to vote anonymously, send it to me.
Becky, did you vote?
I said thank you, Don.
I don't vote unless it's case tie.
Okay, and we didn't have a vote from Callie.
Callie's not a member.
Mr. Bell?
Becky Dobbs is.
I didn't see what you voted
All right, let's go ahead and move on. Okay,
Unanimous, though, right?
the amended agenda is approved. So the next on the list is approval of the annual meeting minutes from 2021. Is there a motion to abstain from reading the minutes?
I make a
Bonnie
motion to
moves
abstain.
To abstain. Laura seconds it.
Okay.
Yes? Okay. Okay. All right, so all those in favor of foregoing the reading of the minutes signify by raising cards here in the building.
Are we abstaining or are we reading?
We're voting to abstain, not read it. Okay, and do they have a poll or is it hands
I
up?
do not have a poll.
All right, so
Raise your hand as soon.
Jude, yeah, raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Jude will give you an account for Zoom. You do count this,
Do you count it?
yes. The abstaining, I probably forgot to put that on there, sorry.
No, there's no section. Yes, this is.
Okay,
Okay. We have 4 Zoom votes. Are you voting?
Abstaining.
Okay.
and for Zoom, correct? For Zoom. All right. Any against? Those who wish to have the minutes read, signify by raising your card, or if you're on Zoom, raise your hand.
Can you please repeat?
Those who wish to have the minutes read, signify by raising your card if you're in the building, or raising your hand on Zoom. Okay. All right, so the motion is passed to abstain from reading the minutes. Now is there a motion to approve the 2021 annual meeting minutes?
I so move.
Dawn has moved to approve the 2021 annual meeting. Is there a second?
I second it.
Marge has seconded. Okay, Marge has seconded. Thank you, Laura. We'll go ahead with Marge. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the 2021 annual meeting, signify by raising your card if you're in the building, and raising your hand if you're on Zoom.
4 Zoom votes. Sorry, more.
Show me the green card. Show me the green card. All right, that motion has been approved. Moving on, we now, as we amended our agenda, we're going to go into the bylaw changes to the following articles and sections. Article 5, Article 5, titled Meetings, Section 1. Article 6, titled The Board, Sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Article 7, titled Duties and Responsibility of Officers, Section 1 and 3. It is moved by the Board of Trustees to approve the bylaw changes regarding the number of board members, which includes dropping the secretary officer position and all articles and sections that refer to these changes, which include Article 5, Section 1, Article 6, Sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, Article 7, Sections 1 and 3. Is there a second to this motion?
A second.
Okay, Dawn has seconded this. Dawn, I don't know if you can second since you're part of the board.
Okay.
So it has to be second. Okay, Sue Ann seconds it. Is there any further discussion? Anybody on Zoom? Okay. Hearing none, I call for the vote. You're going to signify by raising your card here in the building, and there will be a poll on Zoom.
Yeah.
Changes regarding the number of board members, which includes dropping the secretary officer position, and all articles and sections that refer to these changes, which include Article 5, Section 1, Article 6, Sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, and Article 7, Sections 1, 3, or by Zoom, select your choice and submit. This is if you accept this. Have people weighed in on poll?
Yes.
Okay, all those who do not approve these bylaw changes, raise your card if you're here in the building. And of course, if you're on Zoom, you would have already made that choice. Any abstentions? Okay, this has to be a 2/3 majority of those who are attending Zoom and in the building. And if I figured it out right, it'd be about 13 people, I think, is 2/3.
We've had a total now of 26 people
Okay,
who are here. Well, here in Zoom.
okay, we have to do the math then. What'd you say, 26?
Yeah.
We have to have 14. Okay, at this time, we may move to the nominations and elections for the board, the nominating committee, and the endowment committee. If there are any nominations from the floor, well, did we get any absentee ballots, Jim? Did we get any absentee ballots? Okay, there's no absentee ballots, so that statement I won't read. We will start with nominations. Are there any nominations from the floor for president? Is that a nomination?
No.
Are there any nominations from the floor for trustees? for the term ending 2025. Are there any nominations from the floor for any of these positions? We lost Zoom? No, well, okay. Anybody on Zoom want to speak up?
No nominations from Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hearing none, we shall continue with the elections for board member. Oh. Did you want to? Okay, Paul would like to.
I'm finishing up my term this year as trustee on the board, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been quite a learning experience for me. I've never been in this kind of position before, but I'm going to step down and allow new blood to come in. I think mine will do a wonderful job, and I thank the board for putting up with me, and I will take this experience with me. Thank you. Yes.
No one wishes. All right, therefore, on your ballot, you can cross out Paul's name. All right. Vote. You may vote now on your ballots. If you're on Zoom, there'll be a poll. Select your choices and push the submit button. In person, you'll use your pink, or if you end up with a white ballot, you'll use that ballot with number A. The tellers will collect these ballots. Don, is everybody on poll? Don, is everybody on poll had an opportunity?
It appears everybody's done.
Okay. Moving on, we're going to go to the nominations and elections of the nominating committee. Are there any nominations from the floor for the nominating committee? All terms end in 2023. Are there any nominations from the floor, Zoom or building? Are there any nominations for the nominating committee in the building or on Zoom? Hearing none, we shall continue with elections for the nominating committee. On the ballot, the three candidates are Laura Lovelace, Mary Teslo, and Sue Ann Restor. If you're on Zoom, Don will share a poll. You select your choices and push the submit button. Vote for three candidates. In person, using your pink, or if you got the white one, select your choices and pass them to the tellers who will be collecting the ballots.
And then we can vote.
Bonnie, could you pick up Robbie's ballot, please? Have the Zoom people had an opportunity to vote? Bonnie, could you also pick up Susan and Tom? please? Zoom done? Zoom people done? Okay. We got one more here in our building. Bonnie, can you pick up Deborah's, please? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the nominations and elections of the Endowment Committee. You know, it's been about, what, 3 years since we've seen Dean? Dean, can you stand up and just wave to everybody? Like I said, it's been about 3 years since we've seen you. Thank you for coming. This is Dean, this is the candidate for the endowment. He will make a full team. All right.
I'm his wife.
Oh. Yeah, there's a wife involved. Thanks, JC. Okay, are there any nominations from the floor for endowment committee? Any nominations from Zoom? Are there any nominations from the floor for the endowment committee? Thank you. One last time, are there any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, seeing none, we shall continue with the election of the endowment committee members. On the ballot is Dean Zick. His term will end in 2025. If you're on Zoom, John will share a poll. You select your choice and push the submit button. In person, using your pink or white ballot form, select your choice and pass them to the tellers who will be collecting the ballots. If you voted, you can raise your, ballot up. And the tellers will pick them up.
I need a ballot.
Mary.
I would think that'd be
Has everyone on Zoom had an opportunity? Need any more ballots out there? Okay, that means the tellers go to work. All right. Next on the agenda is the treasurer's report and budget presentation. I invite Jim Muir, your treasurer, to come up and do the treasurer's report.
Good morning. Before I get into the details of the treasurer's report, what I'd like to do is spend just a couple minutes talking about our past, and then a couple minutes again talking about our future. 50 years ago, this fellowship was founded by a nice group of people, and we really appreciate them doing that. They bought a used house and made it their home. Later, they raised some more money and was able to build this building that we're using today. This became their new home. And during that time, I know it varied from year to year, but during that time, there was about 70 members. Now, about the future, it's going to be a little bit different than the past. I think we're going to be struggling. The buildings are getting older. The new building is about 15 years old. It hasn't needed much to date, but before you know it, air conditioners are going to start to fail, roofs will need to be repaired, and so on. The older building, in addition to needing some maintenance that everybody needs, every building anyway. Yeah, we all need some maintenance. It needs some repairs. We're going to be able to do this if we try hard with just 38 members. Hopefully we're going to get more than 38, but that's where we stand today. And that's about half of what they had when they built this building. So we're going to have to struggle, but I think it'll be a successful journey. And there's a lot to be learned when you have to struggle. So what we're going to do is, so here's the financial report. We presently have, when I wrote this, it was about 2 weeks ago, so the numbers are a little bit off. But in the first bank savings account, we have about 26,000. In the checking, we have about 25,000. And in the CD, we have about 6,000. So we're not hurting. This year we've done very well. Money keeps coming in. What we're going to do to prepare for all of this maintenance that we foresee is to combine the savings with the CD. That's simply putting in one bank account. And we're going to strip out of the checking account as much as we can, probably about 15 to 20K, and put that into the savings account. Then we're going to change the name from the savings account to the, what was the name we were going to call it?
Capital Reserve.
Capital Reserve Fund. Thanks, Don. And that's going to be untouchable except for maintenance of the two buildings. So let's talk about how we're being managed, how the fellowship manages the money. We have a board of directors, of course, and they oversee all of these finances. And the board has decided to, long ago, establish a finance committee that is managing more precisely than the board what we're doing with the finances. The two big things that the finance committee does is they propose and work on the annual budget, which you'll hear about shortly, and you've had a chance to read. And they also arrange fundraising events. That I think we're going to be doing more often than we're doing today. And just as a reminder, the finance committee is crucial in the sense that it controls how we spend the money, what we spend it on, what we not spend it on, and so on. So if any of you members want to join that committee, feel free. Just let us know. We'll be glad to call you when there's a meeting happening and so on. And it's free. We won't charge you anything to join us. You won't have to suffer a vote.
That's one of our fundraisers.
Exactly, there you go. So if you're at all interested, and believe me, we could use some help. There's only 3 of us on this committee, and it's a tough job. In addition to the money that I've talked about, we also have an FET, that stands for Fellowship Endowment Trust, and we presently have about 51,000 in that Vanguard account. The 51,000 can vary. You've seen in the news daily how bad the stock market is going up and down. So this 51, I wrote it there a couple of days ago, but it's going to be all news by Tuesday. Lord knows what it's going to be. But we're just sitting tight. It'll recover eventually. The next thing I'd like to talk about very briefly is this year's budget. This year, I mean the present budget, which is the budget for the fiscal year that's going to be ending in 2 weeks. So let me call that last year's budget. Last year's budget amounted to over $36,000. We fully intend not to spend all of that money. We're going to have roughly 3,000 or 4,000 left over, maybe even more. But that's 2 weeks away, so I can't promise anything. The next year's budget, starting in 2 weeks, we've whittled that down to 28,000, a little bit over 28,000. So from last year to this year, we have $8,000 less in our budget. So we're really trying hard to spend it wisely. Is there any questions on this year's budget, this next year's budget, or this year's budget? No questions? That's fine. Thank you.
I'm Paul Chu, Chair of the Finance Committee, and I was asked to be on this committee, and I was rather surprised, as my only qualification was probably I haven't balanced my checkbook in 10 years or more. Also, I'm a farmer, which you could roughly translate as being a gambler. So it's been an interesting experience. And I may bring to the committee a little different perspective. And the reason I'm on the committee is to provide some oversight to the committee. So at the end of every meeting, I have everybody turn their pockets inside out. And we've collected a good amount of change for some finance committee activities that I won't go into. A little history, our treasurer and chairman used to be the same person. And so adjustments were made in having 2 separate things, and I think that's helped quite a bit. So my perspective might be happy, don't worry. And other members tend to be more like the sky is falling. And I think the truth is a little bit somewhere in between those 2 perspectives. And with the pandemic, it's really been a struggle because we're doing both the virtual service and while trying to maintain our infrastructure here as well. So that's been a challenge, and with the help of Warren and many other people, that our Zoom service has worked well. And so whether we've been using the building to its full capacity, we still have a lot of the same expenses, maybe a few are a little lower, such as cleaning, maybe the electric bill's been a little lower. Committees have done a great job of holding down costs, but maybe part of that was really just the pandemic. Don Erickson developed a building maintenance plan a number of years ago that detailed what we could expect to spend on our buildings in the next 20 years. Okay, and a lot, I know a lot of effort went into that, But those are kind of estimates. We don't know how long our AC units are gonna last or when we need to replace the carpet. You know, we know the roof's gonna have to be replaced and the building painted. So, you know, there should be concern there. And averaged out, this came up to about 17,000 a year, but that included the older building. Since we're really not using that now, we can reduce that to 12,000 a year that we estimate we need to maintain, you know, this building, which is a lot of money. And it's been explained to me over and over again why we can't include this amount in our annual operating budget, due to my total confusion and consternation that I don't understand this. So it will require us having to do additional fundraising, and we're open to your ideas to meet that goal of beyond our operating budget having about 12,000 a year. Now, Jim mentioned that if whatever money we have left over, you know, in this year's budget, we can apply that toward that 12,000. So while our ship may be currently seaworthy, there is concern about the future in keeping this building, you know, maintained and functioning properly. And Jim mentioned that we've set up a capital reserve fund, an account, and also an emergency account that deals with, I think, ups and downs of daily operation. And that's like 5,000. And so we have about 48,000 in our capital reserve account, probably. Okay. If we had to use those funds for something else, it would take board approval. So that money is kind of, you know, it's earmarked, but it's kind of also not available. Another note is that the FET account is partly there in case the fellowship runs into trouble. And according to what I understand, that we could, you know, go into that account if we really have problems during difficult times. Okay, and so my job today was to come before the fellowship and mention that there is going to be a shortfall between our operating budget and ongoing maintenance of our building, a reserve account. So the question is, how do we fund needed future expenditures if it's not in our operating budget? And we want your input, so please help out. So this is where don't worry, be happy, and the sky is falling kind of comes into play. From my perspective, worrying doesn't accomplish much, and it may divert our attention from more pressing needs that our fellowship has. And I think the really pressing need for the fellowship is growth. And we want to make sure we have the financial funds available to help grow our fellowship. Yes, the building is important, but I don't think we want to take away from the growth of the fellowship, which if we could bring in more members, we would have more money to, you know, preserve our building and continue our programs. So my perspective on this committee is maybe a little different. And this will be part of the work of the Finance Committee in the year ahead to figure out what we do to meet those needs. Thank you. Okay. So now we take up the issue of the declaration of intent. And I hope you've had a chance to at least look that over, had a cursory look at it. So on behalf of the board, I'm presenting Greening Up Our Fellowship, a declaration of intent 2022 and beyond. And yes.
What were
talking about the budget? Do we want to vote on the budget now, or are we going to hold off on that?
Good idea.
Yeah, I realized I forgot that, so I thought, well, we'll just do both of them at the same time.
Okay.
Oh, I thought I was going to have a break here. So what is the declaration of intent? I believe any action starts with intention. The declaration is a series of statements, our intentions, based on our UU principles and purposes, which focus primarily on environmental and social issues. And that's like number 7 and whatever the other one was in our principles. The declaration has grown out of a town hall meeting, the work of an ad hoc committee meeting, and input from a number of individuals in the fellowship kind of fine-tuning this document. These statements of intent are divided up into categories of our principles: education, energy, people, connection with nature, finance and consumerism, food, actions, and collaboration. So it's a very detailed document. You might want to take it in small amounts, reading it. Put it next to your golden throne. Environmental stewardship has long been a signature issue with our fellowship. Under the guidance of Bill Denton, we became a Green Sanctuary congregation in 2003. A number of significant achievements resulted from this, including recycling and energy conservation practices, use of native plants in our garden, worship services regarding environmental awareness that continue today under the leadership of our worship committee. They've done a marvelous job. Study circles on voluntary simplicity, sustainable choices, global warming, and ethical eating. Educational outreach activities, including Go Green Drive Sundays, films, booths at local fairs. And we've also partnered with regional organizations in use of our facilities and conducted many eco forums with the help of Don and Sandy that we've invited the community to attend. We partnered with the community in establishing gardens, raised beds in people's backyards, and that program went on for quite a while. So we have a legacy of environmental stewardship in our fellowship, but rather than looking at the past and resting on our laurels, we might ask ourselves how we can move forward in a world that is changing day to day. As Greta Thunberg says, our house is on fire. How will we react to this crisis? The climate crisis has brought to the forefront environmental and social issues, and we realize now they're not separate issues. We used to kind of address them. We address environmental issues and we address social issues. Now we realize they're one and the same, and so we need to respond appropriately. And we refer this to climate justice or climate injustice. The changing climate is forcing many people off marginal lands who join the ranks of what we now call climate refugees, knocking on the doors of other, mostly Western countries for refuge. UUA is asking congregations to recommit to Green Sanctuary, given the changing world that we live in. The Declaration of Intent is the first step in meeting our commitment to address the climate crisis and redress the social injustice that it causes. Lost my place here. It is often reported that poorer developing nations, which have contributed little to global warming, have borne the brunt of the climate crisis. And the poor doesn't have the luxury of retreating to air conditioning. If we do, we may do. As the planet warms, The declaration of intent is a guide for us to re-examine what our commitment is to green sanctuary and take appropriate actions where needed. It's an action-driven document. In our committee-driven fellowship, it's up to each committee to look at whether our actions or culture is really aligned with our principles, as outlined in this document. We no longer have a social and environmental justice committee, and I'm not so sure we need one. So every committee carries the responsibility of things in this document. Individually, the declaration is a guide to examining our own personal lives and what our commitments are to sustainable lifestyles. I installed some solar panels on my house, and I can go into my dashboard and look at how my system is working, how much power it's producing, how much power I'm using. And I'm not only covering my household, I'm charging my car. So I don't, I have an electric car, and I don't have to stop and buy gasoline. So it's really exciting, when you make a commitment to some changes in your life, what comes out of that. I'm not up here trying to brag. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, are we living our principles? If not, how can we change our actions to be aligned with what we espouse? In other words, it's not enough just to say what we believe. We need to put it into action. We need to walk the talk. While we have a wonderful energy efficient building, wouldn't it be great if it was powered by solar or wind? So we have to look to the future. And our commitment might be, what we invest our money in. So I ask for your support in adopting the Declaration of Intent for our fellowship. Thank you for your attention.
Due to my lapse of thinking, we missed doing the approval of the budget right after that happened. So we're going to do both the approval of the budget first, and then we'll switch and do the approval of the declaration. So I need a motion to accept the 2022-2023 budget proposal.
So moved.
Robbie raised your hand first, so I'll give that to her. 2 seconds. Warren will second. Is there any further discussion? How about from Zoom?
I don't see anybody looking for attention in the Zoom world.
Okay. Hearing none, I call for the vote. If you're on Zoom, Dawn will share a poll. You select your choice and push the submit button. In person here in the building, please raise your card. Have we got a count from Zoom? Okay. Okay, we've got a count. Okay. Is there anyone, I'm sorry, all those who do not accept the 2022-23 budget, raise your card or select that choice on your survey.
Becky, say that again, please.
All those who do not accept the 2022-23 budget.
Okay.
Any abstentions? Yeah, I'm waiting for the green or the red. Okay, the budget has been accepted. All right, the Green Sanctuary Declaration acceptance. It is moved to accept the Green Sanctuary Declaration. I need a motion from someone for that. Mary?
But I have a question first.
Okay,
What are we actually voting on the declaration?
accepting the whole piece.
Excuse me?
Accepting as an official declaration of our fellowship, is that right? Our intention.
Our intention, yeah.
Declaration.
Does that answer your question?
Money involved in it?
I'll answer your question here in a second. Mary, does that answer your question?
So we're affirming our congregational commitment? Yeah.
Yeah. I know last year we did a resolution, and now we're doing a declaration. So, and this declaration is a little bit more detailed than the resolution was. Okay, Jill, your question again?
Does it have money attached to it at this time?
No, it's kind of in. I mean, for example, the big one I know about is under the food, looking at the coffee that we use here in the fellowship, and I know our hospitality committee has really done that, and they've found that we can get a environmental sustainable coffee for not for high price. Is that right? So so that's where the money would be involved, is within an action. Okay, any other questions or discussions from Zoom? We didn't have a motion yet to talk about it, but so do we move to accept the Green Sanctuary Declaration? Is there a motion for that?
I so moved.
All right, Bonnie's made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Robbie seconded. All right, any further discussion from Zoom or others?
No.
All right, call for vote. All those approving the Green Sanctuary Declaration, please raise your card in the building. And if you're on Zoom, please pick your choice on the poll presented. Have all poll people presented in? Done? No? Okay.
Good, thank you.
All right, all clear?
We're done.
We're waiting on, okay. Since the Zoom people have the choice on the poll, yes or no, we here in the building are going to go ahead with the question of if you vote no to approve the Green Sanctuary Declaration, raise your card. Okay, I don't see any, but that's a teller shot. Okay, that has passed. We've accepted the Green Sanctuary Declaration. Okay, are you guys ready to present the election results? I need one of you guys to come up here where the microphone is. Bonnie, go ahead and use this one to make sure it works. See if we can.
Testing.
Testing? Can everybody hear me that needs to? Do I do anything to it?
Hello? They can. Oh, and I'll just talk up for our group. All right, I'm happy to say, as far as the president, Becky Thorndike has been approved. Our new trustee to the board is Milo Barron, approved. Nominating committee, Laura Lovelace, approved. Sue Ann Reesdorf, approved. And Mary Teslo, approved. For the Fellowship Endowment Trust, Dean Zook, approved. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you to Marcy and Bonnie as our tellers and everybody else who helped in. For recognition of outgoing officers and trustees, the trustees that are going this year, I say this because I really like having them on. We're losing Laura Lovelace and Paul. And I want to thank both of them for their opinions and for being there and for being willing to speak up. And they really did make us think. Sometimes some of us might have gotten a little frustrated with having to think so much. But it was a different perspective from each one of them in different ways. And it was, in fact, I thought Laura's going to be here, so I have a little, thing for her. It says, for best ideas. Then it goes on to say that no one would follow through with it. So, we appreciate that a lot. So, good news is that Paul will continue as chair of the finance committee and oversee and make sure we're all thinking clearly. So, not giving up on this. One of the biggest things he said to me at one time was he realized that he's an elder now. And he was wanting he needs to step up and appreciate the fact that you did that. And that you are. Thanks. Okay, a message. Just to let you know, when I timed it was 7.5 minutes. So just bear with me, I do like it. Of course. All right, why don't you hold that ball up? So you slide it. Kind of deflated.
It is deflated.
So, how many of you remember the beach ball from 3 years ago? There it is again. In the middle of the group. When you look at it, you'll see a panel that is different from the others. But it's one ball. A ball with different personas surrounding it. This is very much like each one of us. We all have different personas that we share with different people. The emphasis of this demonstration was that to accept each other, we need to recognize that we have different personas with each other. Our job is to get to know a person and their sides to know that person. At the beginning of my term several years ago, I had high hopes and vision for the fellowship. During my first year on the board, I was informed by several members and friends that they wished to be involved but were not able to get in. When I was placed into the presidential leadership, I used my knowledge, research, and resources to bring the committee system to our fellowship, asking people to take on parts of whichever area they might be interested in. It didn't have to be the chair. It could be a task helping the committee. It started off with many people sharing their time and energy. Using the committee system means that the committees plan and implement programs, and the board oversees the work of the fellowship, including the goals, vision, and policies. In early 2019, we as the board and committee chairs had an in-house retreat to establish updated goals and procedures using the Denton era as our guide. We then began work on implementing those goals and procedures. This past week, I was in the celebration hall, just glancing around and reflecting on the activities that we have done as a board, committee, and fellowship. My glance fell on the whiteboard, the one where we sign up for greeters, flowers, or hospitality. And I realized that the last entry was the end of March 2019. It had all the town hall meetings that we had planned to have on the certain Sundays because we had a big change that we were trying to get people to know about and have input too. As I looked at the board, it hit me that 2019 was the beginning of the pandemic and closure of the building. For me, it meant thinking about how we had to change our course to get the information out and to keep on moving forward. It meant we needed to rethink how to keep each one of us in contact and continue connections with one another. It meant questioning, how do we do the work of a fellowship without being together in person? Zoom was a technology that took many of us by trial and error, and still trial and error for many of us even now. It became our connection with one another. Many of you also reached out to each other beyond Sundays to stay connected. Just recently, I realized that I'm the pandemic president. Dawn and I always talk about how to keep us together as a fellowship. We have lost a number of people, members, and friends. We are low in membership numbers this year, although we've gone up to 41. All over the U.S., people have rethought their priorities to Sunday mornings. New words were coined: hybrid, in person, Zoom, and new normal. Many of us have admitted that it is easier to roll out of bed, throw on a shirt, and turn on the computer. As we started to open up again, I realized I did miss the in-person connection. Listening to others, they too have felt the isolation. I don't know what's going to happen down the line. I don't know if we'll have to close the building again or not. What I do know is that we need to be available to those who have just discovered and rediscovered us, regardless of what our future will be. I know that our 50th anniversary celebration is being planned on a trust that we will be able to celebrate our newness in establishing a new normal. We claim our heritage and we recognize we are the stewards who must make our new normal be acceptable to all who wish to be a part of the future of Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, Franklin. An important concept that is crucial to a new normal comes from our messages for the past 2 years on how to get along and how to live by our first and third principles. First principle is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The third principle is acceptance of one another and encouragement for spiritual growth. There are 3 steps. Now, I used to tell you there were 5 steps, but I've dropped it down to help you out. These can guide you to the goals of accepting. The first one is learning. Learn about each other. Learn about the person next to you. You already know about your wife or your husband, but take the next person. Talk to each other. Sometimes it's not easy to talk to someone if you're having a disagreement or you're not looking at things eye to eye. But talking helps. As long as you go in with the understanding that you're willing to learn about this person. And then accept this person. Accept them for where they are now. Not who you want them to be, not who they were 20 years ago, but where they are now. Recently, while listening, I've tuned into people in their sharing, following these steps, catching on. I found people who had no idea that were listening to the concepts, using the steps in relations with others. Don't give up. All 3 steps together make up a powerful connection. This message is not going to go away. We are starting to come back together as a fellowship that we all can feel a part of. Thank you for your confidence for the next 2 years. You know what my style is, and you continue to give me the directive. I commit to continue to learn, talk, and accept, yet act for the best of this fellowship. As we come to the end of this meeting, I know that we weren't going to do joys and concerns, but I do have some that I would like to put forward. Thank you. Blessed be God. We shall extinguish the flame. But I also want to remind you that we have the town meeting directly after. Penny will take a point for that. So with extinguishing the flame of our chalice, we adjourn the 2022. Thank you. Okay, Penny, it's all yours.
Jill, can you spotlight Penny?
Oh, you know, I have to put it front. You never come up to class for everything. Okay. I need someone to lead it because I'm not a memorizer of that.
Well, it's the spirit of this fellowship and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Woo-hoo!
All right. Now it's yours.
Jill, can you spotlight Penny? I don't have the power today.
Oh, boy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everybody that presented and all the work that went into today's service. So I'm here today to do a presentation on COVID. And I know everybody, myself included, is tired of COVID. Unfortunately, it isn't tired of us yet. So the concept of this is COVID is our enemy. The more we know about our enemy, the better we can protect ourselves from that enemy. And I promise I will try not to get too deeply into the weeds here. If you have questions, I will be glad to attempt to answer them. Probably since we're hybrid today, it would be better to hold your questions until the end, and then we'll deal with them. Okay, so when we're considering how much risk we're willing to take with COVID, first we have to define what types of risk we're talking about for both ourselves and for other people. So these include death, being in an intensive care unit, being on a ventilator, hospitalization, illness at home, infection without any symptoms, and long COVID, as it is called, for ourselves or for other people. And the issue is how acceptable or unacceptable to you is each of these risks. So as we go through talking about COVID and what it is and what it does, keep that in the back of your mind. In addition, as an organization, we need to consider the importance of trust. When we open the sanctuary to people, those people need to be able to trust that we are doing all that we can to keep everyone safe, including making sure that the restrictions that we're placing are clear and adhered to. So let's start with some information about COVID, the virus. The first thing you need to know is that viruses can't reproduce by themselves. They have to infect cells, animal cells, human cells, sometimes even plant cells. So they need a living organism as a host in order to produce more virus. Therefore, the virus does best when it infects as many hosts as possible. Another characteristic of viruses in general is that they mutate. This is why we need a different flu shot every year. And the newer COVID mutations, such as Omicron, have evolved to the point that they are better at spreading and tend to replace prior versions of the virus over time, with Omicron pretty much being 100% of the cases these days. During this viral spreading, some people will die and some will have long-term consequences of infection. So how does COVID get into us? It enters the body through the nose and attaches itself to a particular type of cells that are in the nose, and potentially can get in through the eyes since the tear ducts connect to the back of the nose, but that's a less likely means of transmission. And the virus is sneaky. Someone has nicknamed it the stealth virus. An infected person may have no symptoms, but still be able to give the virus to other people who may react differently to the virus. Also, this virus, COVID, is not just another version of the flu. Just statistically speaking, 1 in 1,000 cases of flu in the United States causes death. For COVID, it is 12 in 1,000 cases. So something over 10 times more likely to be fatal. There's some other considerations regarding risk. There are certain medical conditions that can make a person deal more poorly with COVID. These include older age, diabetes, high blood pressure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, smoking, present or past, and immune suppression due to cancer, steroids, or any other medications that suppress the immune system. Vaccines are also less effective in such people since the vaccines work by activating our immune system. And then there is the so-called long COVID. Much of long COVID, unfortunately, still remains a mystery, but basically it's a COVID infection whose symptoms do not entirely resolve or only resolve over an extremely long time. It consists of a wide range of debilitating symptoms and has created a big group of people who struggle with work and their daily lives. For some reason, women seem to be more likely to develop long COVID than men are. The percentage of COVID infected people who develop long COVID is estimated, and it's only an estimate, to be 10 to 30%. Currently, there's no real treatment for this, although researchers are working hard to understand it better and to try to develop some solutions. Vaccines. These vaccines for COVID don't generally prevent infection. They don't stop the virus from doing its business inside your nose, but they do help prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and death by helping mobilize the body's natural defenses when it sees an invader. Due to virus mutations, current vaccines are not as effective as they originally were, and their effectiveness decreases over time since vaccination, but they are still very helpful. So keeping up with boosters is important. Your vaccine primarily protects you, but might somewhat protect others by decreasing the amount of virus you could be spreading if you do become infected yourself. When we state that people need to be fully vaccinated to enter the sanctuary, we need to be specific that this includes all available boosters as well. Masks. Your mask primarily protects others, and other people's masks primarily protect you. This is why it is important for everyone to wear masks when in close proximity to others, indoors. The N95 and KN95 masks are the best, but a medical mask with a cloth mask on top of it is better than just one mask, though not quite as good as an N95 mask. Social distancing. This adds another layer of protection, but bear in mind the circumstances. Outdoors is generally the safest because of better air circulation. When indoors, be mindful of what other people are doing. 6 feet apart isn't adequate if people are shouting or singing, since virus particles will travel further. This virus can spread by either droplets or aerosols, a fact that was not recognized early in the pandemic. Droplets are bigger and don't travel as far. They tend to just plop down onto the floor. And that was the basis for the 6-foot recommendation that was originally given. But aerosols are smaller and lighter and circulate further away and remain in the air for longer periods of time, just kind of floating around. What about the monitoring of community status? I've been diligently trying since the pandemic started to keep up with that, but it has become a lot more difficult. And there's been an article that's been in the UU View for multiple weeks now that goes into the explanation of that. So see that, and also the referenced article from the Atlantic publication for more information. What I can say is that there are 2 Omicron subvariants, BA2 and BA4, that are spreading rapidly now in the US and have mutations that are rendering our current vaccines and previous infection less protective than they used to be, although still protective to a pretty good degree. So all this sounds like really bad news. So is there any good news? Please, could we have some good news? Yes, the current dominant variant and its subvariants, while more contagious, appear to be somewhat less deadly, though of course this could change with new variants. Another plus is that you may be able to think differently about surface cleaning, which some of us were pretty diligent about back in the beginning of the pandemic. It is now known that this surface contamination is not the primary way this virus infects us, that being these droplets and aerosols that can get to your nose. So for example, if you go to the grocery store and you wear a mask while you're in the grocery, then you can't touch your nose. So if you're handling products in the grocery and touching surfaces, then as long as that mask is on, you don't have to be concerned about transmitting that to your nose. Hand washing after touching any kind of suspect surface is certainly a good idea. Another good news item is the ongoing work to develop new and better vaccines that are less hampered by new variants, including a possible nasal spray vaccine that could help prevent infection, unlike the current vaccines, which just help prevent serious illness and death. So, this is not going to, assuming the testing goes well and that comes to fruition, it's a ways off, of course. So in conclusion, as of this morning, The Jackson County wastewater data shows a rise in COVID in the wastewater that's being monitored in Jackson County. Unfortunately, here in Macon County and in the counties in North Georgia, no wastewater monitoring is being done. There are also, as of last Friday, according to the Macon County Health Department information, cases are rising here in Macon County as well. So COVID is still here, and we don't know what additional surprises this very innovative vaccine has in store for us as it continues to mutate. So be mindful of risks to yourself and others in accordance with our UU principles. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No. Okay. You're now virus experts. It's official. And you can unspotlight me.
And if you would address, we've installed now in the building MERV 14 air filters. Can you say a little bit about that and how that may help protect us while we're in the sanctuary? We're also, I'm trying to figure out our fan system so that we would run the fans continuously while we're in here. So the air is running through the filters. And of course, we have windows we can open, and we actually have a fan up above that we could turn on. One problem with opening windows, you bring in humidity and your air conditioning.
Right.
Like that from the building. So anyway, I'll let you.
Paul, I don't think I caught the beginning of your question or comment. Could you repeat that, please? Okay.
I think it's been recommended by CDC and others that we upgrade our filtration system in buildings
Okay.
to help filter out those viruses. Okay. So maybe you can give us a little more information about that.
Okay, thank you for repeating that. As I've said when we talked about, Paul and I have talked about this before, better air is always better than not better air. But the question of can we make it perfect by changing filters and so forth, we can certainly make it better. How do we prove that it's better or how much better it is? I don't think there's really a practical way to do that. But I know that Paul and others have been diligently working on some cost-conscious ways of improving the circulation of air in the sanctuary. The business with aerosols is particularly troublesome because we have a high ceiling in there, and the aerosols can waft all over the place. Any other questions?
I have a general, not as much a question for you directly, Penny, but to ask people generally about how they feel about gathering in person, and particularly whether they're singing in the sanctuary, so that we can get some feedback from people. We have about a quarter of the people who are in the sanctuary right now are wearing masks, just to give you an idea of how many people are. So if anyone has an opinion about how much we want to be open, how much we want to sing or not sing, the worship team would really find it helpful to know. So I don't know if there's, whether you or Laura or folks on Zoom have a comment first, and then we can take comments from here. I don't see any.
Well,
Travis is saying that COVID-19 infection in North Carolina and Georgia, as well as nationally, he's put on Zoom. Is there there anyone who has an opinion about singing in the sanctuary? Robbie, do you want to comment? Or anyone else who has a comment about that? Okay, go that way. Yeah. Oops, I did the wrong way.
Okay, I'll do the short version. I just have a question. Has anyone in our congregation who has been attending Sunday services gotten COVID? Has anyone in our congregation that we know of gotten COVID? All right.
There's no way to be sure.
So
of
Callie
that.
got COVID in Florida, I know.
People can have asymptomatic infections.
Well,
but that's
I just
all.
wondered if anyone knew.
Yeah. Good question.
Okay.
Jinsey, did you want to make a comment?
This is the one I'm talking into. Hi, I'm Virginia, or Jinsey, if you know me by my nickname. And I'm sorry we've been away for so long, but we've developed very sedentary habits during COVID. I sing and was crushed when we had to stop singing in our 50-voice chorus in Franklin. But we've gone back after it closed down. It has started back, and we all are hopefully vaccinated to the fullest. I know I am, and Dean's are, but we are singing now, and we're having our annual summer concert on the 30th. And it has been a joy to me to be able to go back and sing. It just meant so much because so of my activities were just wiped out. The acting was wiped out. The singing was wiped out. The hiking was wiped out, everything. And I suffered some heavy depression. But about singing, I was a little concerned, you know. It seemed to me that would be a fine way to spread droplets and so forth. But we're all there now. We're 50 strong, and we're going to have our concert. And maybe the concert comers will be wearing masks. Might be good. But we're singing and crossing our fingers, I guess. But again, I think everyone who's there has gotten every shot available so far. So I just wanted to mention that singing is such a joy. It's a shame to have to give it up.
Thank you, Jinsey.
Yes.
I want to thank Penny so much for some really good information and things to think about. I think my take, lots of certainty here, is that singing is vital, and so is protecting everybody. But if I understood Penny right, a major way to protect ourselves is to wear the appropriate type of mask. So if for myself, I'm comfortable, I would love to come where they're singing, and I will be sure to sit out in the audience masked up and enjoy the singing. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Jill?
Cautionary tale, I guess, or maybe not. Ubuntu started singing as well on Wednesdays, but we did have an outbreak of COVID and we're closed down for 3 weeks. So we didn't prevent it, but we did kind of step back while that was happening. So I think anytime you open these things up, you have to be prepared to close them down at a moment's notice should that happen. And you are running the risk. That's the question. It's all a matter of risk, like anything in life. So we've gone back and forth, even in In fact, I think we've closed down twice, haven't we? Yeah, because of COVID. So bear that in mind as the board decides what to do.
Thanks, Joe. Jude?
Ouch, sorry, I have to creak.
Watch all those cords, yes.
So what I wanted to say was, keep in mind that if we have a performer here like we have in the past that is singing, we're talking about their moisture going out to the crowd. Now that is different from us sitting next to each other and we're singing. I love singing. Music is vital to my life, but this is something that Penny and I were talking about to be aware of. It's one thing for us to mask up and be back 10 foot from a performer here at this level, but when we are standing next to each other and singing and sharing our moisture, that is quite different. So.
Marcy?
So I'm not a member yet, but I will be. And I'm like everyone, I love, love, love singing, been doing it my whole life. What I'm wondering is there a way to brainstorm some ways to position ourselves in this room so that we can be safer as if we want to sing?
Do you mean singing as audience or singing as everything?
I'm sorry.
Is that question to me?
When you say safe, when we're safe.
I'm talking about if we want to sing as a group together, if we're further apart from one another, or even, by windows or something, some creative way to sing without our singing going towards each other in the way that we normally would.
You could try singing outdoors.
Ooh.
Yeah, outdoors is good. Outdoors is a good idea, weather permitting. A picnic with singing.
No, I can't step up. I'm sorry. Oh, I forgot that they couldn't. No, I was going to say, you can hear some of the people up here have been speaking with a mask on, and I think you hear them, and you know something? Lift every voice and sing, sing with a harmony. I'm singing with the mask. You hear me, right? You can sing with the mask on.
Is your
It
nose
can be
covered?
done if you're comfortable. If you're comfortable, it can be done. I'm comfortable. And it can be done, and that's a way of protecting. That's something, because music is important, and we need it in a congregation like this. It's needed, and I think it could be done safely.
Thank you, Selma. Thank you, Selma. And also thank you, Callie, for saying that this microphone is better than the other microphone. Are there any other questions or comments or questions for Penny?
Well, I just wanted to reiterate that we have a fan up here, an exhaust fan, and there's a timer back there. All you have to do is turn it on, and that would bring air in from around the windows and take it out. So it would kind of be like being outside. The only thing we have to deal with is, well, how hot is it outside or how cold is it outside? But we have this, and it was installed in this building for that, for the purpose, that we might need it. We didn't know at that time, that there would be a pandemic and a virus. But even if the air conditioners go out, I think when they did, we used the fan up there for cooling. Moving air is 3 to 6 degrees cooler than air that's just still.
Thank you, Paul. I think, oh, Virginia, please.
I have a joy that I would like to share. Some of you may know that my younger son worked with travel leaders, which is a huge.
I'm sorry that I'm having a hard time hearing you. Do you want to come up here?
No, I'll just talk loud. Sharing a joy. My younger son has been in the travel business for years, and they were furloughed first, and Delta absorbed World Travel Leaders, is retraining them, and some of the customers that they're dealing with is just unreal. I don't know if you hear in the news that 1,500 flights have been discontinued, et cetera. So it's a hit or miss thing if you try to travel. But we're grateful to Delta for being willing to absorb these people and then retrain them. They give them a script to use with irate customers.
I think this really responds to what Becky was saying, is being flexible and learning how to adapt. And so we're grateful to Delta for doing that for them. I appreciate what Paul was saying about the ventilation and whatnot. I think we have to be cautious, as Penny suggested as well, when we get to the fall and open windows are not as much an option, and when the air is drier and, you know, people are staying inside more and it's more conducive to some issues. But happily here in June, you know, we're in sort of we're in a better situation. Jude, are there any other questions on Zoom? No? Are there any other questions or comments here?
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, we have to leave. Our girls have planned a Father's Day dinner for Dean, and we're going to be late to it as it is.
It's a joy to have you here. Tom, it's a joy to see you. Hugs.
Hi, all. I'm thinking that for the common good, we may want to consider a policy of masks here in the congregation, at least for a period of time. I think for the common good, we have to keep in mind any individual that comes in here who may be infected or whatever. We could have some situation here, I think, that we could probably do without. But I think that if we have the masks on.
Is that from personal experience?
I've had some personal experience, yes. And it's not nothing that you want to get. I still haven't I have my senses, most of them, but my smell has still not come back completely. But at any rate, that way I think we protect everyone. And if it's something that the board may want to consider as a policy for a period of time, I think, and as Selma so beautifully illustrated to us, we can sing our hearts out behind the mask just very well. So I would certainly get in favor of that sort of situation. Here I'm standing before you right now without one on, it's in my pocket. But I think that we may want to give some serious thought to that and just make it a policy for a period of time. And that would protect everyone. And I think we would be doing the right thing for our congregation. Thank you.
Thank you. So your common sense is still working, right?
Well, let's not get too carried away.
I'd like to remind everyone that the sanctuary will be closed next Sunday, so Warren can recuperate and tech folks can take a break. The service is on Zoom. So there will be a service. It is on Zoom. It's Reverend Diana Rottola, but a closed sanctuary for next. And then the worship team will ponder our feedback. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Becky. We are all done. Thank you, everyone.
One more quick thing.
One more quick thing. All right.
On your way out, if you take just a minute and walk through the Memorial Garden, Tom has done a lot of work. It looks really nice now. So if you take a look and give some good thoughts to Tom.
I have veggies left over from the farmer's market, and they're downstairs if anybody is interested.